So when we talk about resources, though, it can be money, but it always doesn't have to be. A lot of you, especially Mateos, you were talking about time, right? Like that's a resource that we take advantage of, and this vibe coding can help shrink that. There's labor, human well-being, incentives. I'm sure there's a lot of other things that I am not adding into that for decision making. But we do know that vibe coding is disruptive. There's a theory out there that the Christensen's theory of disruptive innovation. And it describes how, and maybe you should be telling me this, but it describes how new technology or processes target underdeserved or overlooked markets, right? That's the premise. But with simpler, cheaper technologies, something that's more available, it helps establish and it helps displace the established players, right? So in your words, how is vibe coding, part of this theory of disruptive innovation?
That's a very interesting modern kind of spin on classics, and kind of to take a step back and think of where these ideas of kind of disruptive innovation were born. They were born out of the ideas of Joseph Schumpeter, who came up with an idea of creative destruction. While he looked at more of a kind of a macro view where new industries destroy all the kind of an outdated industries, and it generates this cycle of creative destruction where a new player comes in, rapidly grows and expands, hires, employs people, earns significant revenue, and is doing well for all that can be said, while others, those that are being misplaced or replaced or just no longer relevant, they disappear. And then when you think of disruptive innovations, you start thinking a little closer on a micro level and try to think, all right, if there is this process of creative disruption, what ignites it? What is that match that sparks the fire? Of course, someone has to be overlooked. We all like the underdog story and kind of the Cinderella story from rags to riches or whatever. But typically in the market, those that are not necessarily able to pay much or spend much, they're being left behind and they are overlooked. So if someone is coming out with an idea that is really unique and different and is not of interest to incumbent firms, because it doesn't necessarily correlate with significant revenue or potential profits that could be earned, it creates an opportunity for a smaller player to come in and say, while this market is small and overlooked for a big player, it is just big enough for me. And that allows you to kind of launch that minimum viable product with little or no requirements, very kind of low tech type of solution that serves the underserved community or population of the market segment that has been overlooked, and they don't even have that, and it gains traction. So that's the kind of key first component of getting the motion to propel. Then something has to happen because we need to accelerate growth and gain more traction. So another feature of these disruptive innovations is that not only they serve a need, they also improve over time, and they improve consistently and in a reliable way. And that draws larger market segment to adopt what used to be a low-tech solution to a good product, a better product. And it creates the momentum, and it is no longer a kind of an underdog or a small-time player. It is actually now operating on full steam and picking up customers left and right and kind of crashing competition out of the way. And this is what is so interesting about this kind of story of rags to riches, help the poor, get rich type of story. And it is very relevant now when you don't have to invest much to kind of chase that little revenue. You could invest relatively little, whatever it is that you invest in time, money, effort.
3 days.
Yeah, exactly. 3 days. We'll see how Mateus pulls it off, but in 3 days,
That's what you have.
yeah. Ideally, imagine that in 3 days, you could solve a problem for someone who has been overlooked for a while, and they're just happy that someone is looking their way.
Yeah, no
Like
doubt.
I don't have to use kind of rock and sticks anymore. I could use a wheel. Great, let's try that.
Has anybody started to notice like the vibe coding agentification of 90% of the websites that are out there nowadays?
I haven't noticed that, but it's definitely a growing trend.
Oh, dude, like no question. And Mateus, I bet you know this better than anybody, but like you can look at a website from like a mile away now and be like, Vercel, Claude. Like you can pick the LLM that actually built it based on the corners of the buttons and everything else.
That's right. Alice, I want to get back to what Pablo was talking about. He was talking about sort of rags to riches, how the small guy starts to build that momentum and needs that acceleration, right? So Prax Labs helps in that area. When you get to the, I guess I'll call it the idea validation, right? So let's get to product market fit. We've vibed something to the point where it fits and we're starting to grow. Does the vibe coding make it shorter to that cycle of getting to the development, or do you just vibe like the idea and then people are starting fresh, right? Have you seen like they just get the idea, then they throw it all away and actually start to write code?
I think you still would go through a little kind of brainstorming exercise, deploy our old friend ChatGPT, say, oh, give me 10 ideas of getting rich quick type of thing, or whatever the brainstorming.
But after we get past that and the market fit is there, and they come to you at Cracked Labs and they say, Cracked Labs, I want to join an incubator or an accelerator. This is what I have. And you look at it and you say, man, that's Vercel, or that's, you wrote that with ChatGPT. Are you still helping them? Are they are they scratching everything, finding a team and moving forward? Like, what's the reuse here?
I think so first of all, do you see the stat that's like 95% of the most recent YC content work came out and like almost all the code's written by AI?
I did not.
And the reason being is like there's going to be a lot of bugs. Your engineering team's going to hate you to have to undo it and redo it. But like you can iterate like what we've been saying. If it took $150,000 plus 6 months plus a shitload of back and forth to actually get to the MVP stage, and now we can do it in a week.
Yeah,
that's disruption, right? To where like the non-technical founders that couldn't actually launch a product because they weren't technical and couldn't afford an engineering team can now vibe code this shit out in 3 days. Like that's awesome. And the more like comprehensive and powerful the LLMs get, the better the underlying tech, the more intent-based everything can become. But I think that it doesn't matter how good your front end is if you don't have partners and users. So that's where it really becomes like you see what PMF actually is when it comes to user acquisition and revenue generation, right? Whether it's a fee-based token model, whether it's whatever you want to do, right? The point is that there needs to be an actual strategy with it. And as of right now, you can't tell ChatGPT to give you 150,000 Twitter followers in a week yet, right? So
no, I hear that.
A lot of silos still.
Yeah.
At least for the time being, the biggest barometer is who's the team? Do they care? Can they prove that they are going to stick with it if they start to get some of that traction? Where like a little bit of money goes a long way, right? We're doing these events with 5, 10, 15,000 in prizes, and those are in some cases small grants to some of these teams. But I think that there's a lot more speed at which everybody can operate now, and that kind of solopreneur status is more within attainment, right? Than at least than it ever has been before, which is pretty fast to see.
Speaking of things that we haven't seen, I mean, there's a huge technical barrier to writing software previous, right? or getting your idea out there with software. Now that we have vibe coding, Pablo, how do you think non-technical sectors, like I come from healthcare or semiconductor, right? But how do you think healthcare, education, how do you think vibe code is sort of lowering the barriers to entry to these people to bring their ideas through?
It is very interesting that there are many dimensions along which people could be different. Someone could work in like healthcare, someone could be into fitness and be like a gym instructor type of person, or someone could be into academia or writing. Whatever it is that they do, there is another feature that all these people could have in common, and this is this kind of entrepreneurial fix that they need to scratch. They have this idea, and oftentimes it is not because they want to get rich. There's nothing wrong with the external motivation where people are chasing that bag. That's fine. But for many of them, they see something that they could improve on, and they also view it as a big problem. Like in healthcare, yeah, I've been doing this way, and it's clearly not the most effective or the best way, or I can clearly see an opportunity. I wonder why no one has taken advantage of that opportunity. So it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter at all. If you're a tennis coach, you can see an opportunity in that day to day and say like, well, now I don't have to be a software developer. I could just try the vibe coding thing and see if I could put together a coaching app and see if I can keep track of kind of a performance. And if performance improves, you solve a problem that people have been gaining degrees for, and kind of studying motion and all these things. It cuts the middleman basically. Now
Sure, yeah.
the person that knows how to fix the problem has the tool that would allow them to kind of fix it. And you guys been discussing it back and forth, and I thought it was rather interesting that you were saying that now non-technical founders have the tool. It also provides a domain knowledge to coders. Basically, you could have an excellent programmer or software engineer who just doesn't know how to apply or what problem to solve. And through this kind of brainstorming exercise, relatively low threshold attempt, they could try a bunch of different things and see what works. Recently, I spoke to a very interesting gentleman. He is a founder of a D5 renderer. It is an architecture AI software that's gaining traction at a very rapid speed. And I thought that he was an architect. He has no background in architecture. He is a software developer who had experience in 3D modeling of for kind of for augmented reality spaces, kind of like these apps that would allow you to see how a piece of furniture would look in your room.
Yeah.
And then with the ease of use of vibe coding and dramatically reduced cost of developing, he was able to put this amazing tool that helps architects, designers, interior designers, you name it. So it goes back and forth. Not only it helps non-technical background folks, it also provides this kind of a collar, if you see my analogy, to a very kind of narrowly focused technical individuals.